Helmets on for safety. Welcome back to Random, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the things that artificial intelligence can't replace, at least for the next couple of decades. Now, if you're as old as my editor is, you'll remember that a number of years ago, the code writers and otherwise known as code bros were basically running around telling people, "Oh, get out of code, bro." Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to make a decent living. And well, artificial intelligence is fortunately putting those jackwagons back in their place, because now they're basically skillless and have no talent, and they're basically going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. Anyway, what's not going to be replaced by artificial intelligence are trades and skills, like what we're going to be going over today, which is welding. But first, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and if you enjoy cold beverages and groovy tunes, check out Beer and Song of the Day. You'll find the link to that channel in the description down below. Also, check out Scoop the Avenger at twitch.tv. The link to that channel will be on the description down below as well. Now, welding. It's been around for quite a bit longer than most people realize, and we're going to get into that as soon as I get my editor's notes out here. Welding starts with forge welding. That is heating pieces of metal and hammering it down flat against each other, two pieces of metal together, over an anvil. That's going to have to be a video all in itself, but that's basically your blacksmithing forging. Forge welding. Again, that's where you heat metal to, in some cases, red, or other cases, white hot. Stick the metal together with a little bit of flux and then hammer it together over a hard anvil, and that's what causes your weld. So it takes your two pieces and forms it into one. That's that entire process. Now, like I said, forge welding is going to have to be a video of itself at a later time, provided my editor pulls his head out and is able to take a breath. Okay, so forge welding's been around for a good long while. Now, as time progressed, we got technology a little bit better. We were able to do more things. A welding process called oxyacetylene welding started to come into fruition. It's basically where you take two gases, okay? So you got your oxygen, which is of course your oxidizer, and your acetylene, which is your fuel gas, which is highly combustible. And when it's mixed appropriately with oxygen, it actually generates quite a bit of heat. That heat is able to melt steel. In the case of a blowtorch, is able to cut through solid steel. And in terms of welding, it's able to get steel hot enough to where it starts to liquefy. And if you add just the right amount of filler rod with an appropriate flux, it allows you to weld two pieces of steel together. Now, I say steel, but you can actually do more than just weld steel with an oxyacetylene torch. You can braze with it. That's where you join two pieces of brass together. And technically, you can weld aluminum with an oxyacetylene torch. It's really hard to do, because once you get aluminum liquid, it wants to go everywhere. Okay, so welding aluminum with an oxyacetylene torch is technically possible. It's just really difficult, and it takes a lot of practice to do it properly. And of course, you have to heat treat the aluminum afterwards, which that's a whole different process. That'll have to be a video of its own as well. Now, MIG welding, metal inert gas welding. That is more common. It's also a lot faster and a lot easier to get a hold of. A lot easier to master, particularly with practice. So what happens is you have the electrode, which is also your filler wire. It comes out of the head of the MIG welder gun, and you use a shield gas. In most cases, it's a mixture of carbon dioxide and argon. Now, the reason you have that shield gas is because you don't want oxygen getting into your weld bead and causing porosity. That allows corrosion, that makes a very poor weld, and you end up having your two pieces of steel not sticking together properly, and it ends up being a very weak joint. So that's no good. Now, MIG welding also has something called flux core wire. That's where the flux is, of course, inside of your filler wire as you're welding. that produces your shield gas. Flux core wire welding tends to be a little bit more dirty, there tends to be a little bit more slag. It tends to be a little more labor intensive after the weld has already been made. It's a bit like stick welding, which is very kind of similar to MIG welding in the sense that you have your stick, which is your filler material, and your electrode, and you have your ground on the other side of the circuit. And what you do is you strike your arc and you drag that stick across whatever it is you're welding to join the two pieces together. Now, stick welding is a little bit different than MIG welding in the sense that it's fast, it's kind of dirty, and more often than not, it's literally just get the two pieces of metal to stop moving and clean it up from there after the fact. Now, can you do clean welds with a stick welder? Absolutely. That's if you have time, that's if you have appropriate surfaces to weld on and things like that. More often than not, if you're stick welding, let's say you're on a trail and you have an axle that you need to re-weld, you're probably going to do it with a stick welder, and it's probably going to be just good enough to get you off of the trail so you can get a better repair done. So that's stick welding and MIG welding. Now, TIG welding, tungsten inert gas. It's a little similar to stick welding and MIG welding in the sense that you're using a shield gas. It's more often than not carbon dioxide and argon, and you use a tungsten electrode. So that's where you get your arc from, okay? And that heats up your substrate that you're trying to weld. And what you do is you feed your welder wire in by hand instead of with an electric motor with your MIG welding. Now, TIG welding has much greater penetration. It means your welded material is going to be much more solid together. The bead is much stronger. And let's see the applications for TIG welding. That would be, you typically do stainless steel. You can do high Inconel, high chromium steels and things like that. More often than not, you will TIG weld frames for monster trucks, rock bouncers, mud racers, and so on and so forth, and dragsters. All of those frames will be TIG welded, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. And when it's done properly, those welds are exceptionally strong and exceptionally clean, and you end up with a frame that's quite a bit stronger than if you, say, stick welded it together. Again, stick welding is primarily get the two pieces of metal to stop moving long enough to do something with, and then clean it up after the fact. MIG welding is kind of the same way. Now, those are the different types of welding we'll use for industrial capacities, but there's other ways of joining pieces of metal together. Namely, a type of welding called ultrasonics. That's right, you use sonic waves or sound waves to excite the metal to vibrate at such a frequency that it actually starts to liquefy a little bit along its edges, and then you just stick them together. Unfortunately, with ultrasonic welding, it takes up a lot of power, and of course, because you're using sound waves, it's kind of detrimental to your hearing. So, ill-advised. Possible, but it's not great. Now, friction welding, pretty cut and dry. Basically, what you do in those instances is you take two materials spinning at very high RPMs and rubbing against each other until the metal liquefies, and then once it does, you suddenly stop them, and now you've got a welded joint. Kind of impractical in a couple of different scenarios, but it can be done. Now, of course, you're going to tell me, oh, random, what about laser welding? That is a thing. Unfortunately, that also takes quite a bit of power and a little bit of practice. So the laser welders you'll see on things like Amazon.com or Temu or insert other website here. Those welders, while they are capable of welding up to certain material thicknesses, they're not they're not all around. Okay, so let's say you want to weld plate steel together that's 1/4 of an inch thick. A laser welder can do that if it has the proper power. If it doesn't, well, you're just going to get half penetration, and your weld's not going to be that structurally sound, and you're going to end up with your two pieces of metal that were joined together broken apart very easily. So again, it comes down to power. Now, believe it or not, you can actually stick weld with a car battery. I've seen it done. Basically what you do is you take a pair of jumper cables, you hook it up to a battery, you take your welding rod, you scrape away the flux on one end, you strike the weld, and off you go. There's just one problem. You're welding with a car battery. It doesn't have all that great voltage control, so either you're going to blow through your material or you're going to kill your battery in 2 or 3 welds. Kind of not advised. It works well in a pinch, but you wouldn't want to do it every day. Let's see, I think that about covers it. Again, there's other material that we'll have to go over in other videos, like I said before. If you learned anything, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. Tell my editor that he needs to do a better job at his notes. Tell me what I'm doing right and if there's anything I'm doing wrong. And as always, folks, keep it random.